The House of Mystery presents Inside Writing, the radio show where authors discuss their writing process in all genres.
We've got a great guest. Actually, the last year we just rerun the show in a couple of our stations, and that was for the Hunting Hitler, and that was with Dr. Michael Simpson. And he's back again, and thank you for joining us on this crazy show.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be back.
Yeah, well, it's
Are
not
you
over.
sure?
At this point, I'm really wondering if you're allowed to plunge your own toilet in Australia, or if you have to call a plumber.
That's
Good point.
That's what I think, some of these laws. But, it could be worse, the British are even worse, right? So,
I think it's a conspiracy with the plumbers union.
Yeah, call Alex. Get him on the phone. I want to talk to you.
There's, I don't remember what state it is, but I was told once that there's a law still on the books that if you're going to drive a horseless carriage through an intersection, you must first step into the intersection and fire a rifle into the air.
Well, that's
to make sure you're not going to run any horses over. Yeah. Well, it's still going on, but I don't think for the same reasons.
No.
That's here in Alabama, right, Steve?
Yeah.
That's right.
That's all they do in Alabama. They shoot up the Walmarts. Wow.
Yeah. Well, we'd have to have a certified firearms instructor to fire that rifle, though.
That's true.
Okay. I'm into that. Well, okay. So now Hunting Hitler is back. It's season 3.
Yes, we are.
And
yes.
I just caught the first 2 last night. So I'm not all the way up to date. So what's the whole plan with the new season? Like, do you have a direction that you want to go in for this season, different than the last one?
The way it's different in a couple of ways. First and foremost, being the big momentum that we got off of season 2 was that we weren't really talking about it on the show for the viewers at home to see, but by the end of season 2, we were really doing a lot of what we call asset mapping, which means we kept noticing these inner circle names of people that were directly associated with Adolf Hitler, people that he would trust. These names kept popping up geographically and temporally related to one another. With the momentum that we had coming off of season 2, Bob being the extremely experienced analyst that he is with all of his years of experience running operations like this, he went out looking for some more expertise and brought Neda Bakos onto the team. And that is her area of expertise, actually, is asset mapping. She has been very involved in the global war on terror in helping us track down nefarious individuals such as Osama bin Laden himself. So this is right in her wheelhouse. So we couldn't ask for a better person in the Situation Room to be helping us in the field with the asset mapping aspect of it. So that, and combined with the fact that, and I think I talked about this with you guys last season, there's this weird phenomenon that actually in between seasons, when seasons are already wrapped, we are inundated with new information. It's almost like, I remember thinking last season, the amount of information that I got through social media contacts, emails, and everything else, I'm like, wow, I wish we could go back and just tack on another 3 episodes with all this new information. Well, that wasn't just for me, that was for the whole team. So a lot of the information that you're seeing, again, these came from people that saw the show and said, hey, I know somebody that has information from that. And also, as we continued to progress, more and more things have become declassified. And, this started in the original first season with basically a cache of FBI documents that were declassified. Now, this year, we have aside from the worldwide investigation that this has become, literally getting documents from all over the world, we have a new cache of declassified CIA documents that came out in kind of two spurts, as it were. We had already started the season investigative leg, and then of course the big release that everybody was aware of that happened fairly recently was the one with the JFK documents, which kind of inadvertently had some stuff that dovetailed into our investigation as well.
It's pretty unusual how they tie together. What's kind of the most of the information that you're getting on off season? What is most of it about? Like, what's it directed to? When people contact you, are they saying like they knew where Hitler was, or what seems to be the direction that people give you?
I've gotten everything. I've got everything that runs the gamut from my great uncle or my grandfather worked in X location, and he was the driver for someone we later determined to be this person, a known Nazi that was fleeing after the Third Reich. We get a lot of information like that, and we also get a little bit of the crazier stuff. I did get contacted by somebody who basically told me they were a genetically engineered Nazi super child, and they had been asked to keep it a secret their entire life. But they had, as a child, they were visited at childhood birthdays by Mengele and by other individuals. It sounded a lot like some deleted scenes from the movie Boys from Brazil.
Yeah,
obviously, that person didn't get a lot of free.
I'm sorry about that. That was Kevin. I know he did that. I told him not to call you, but you can't control him.
Mike, listen, how much of that information that you get is good information that you can use?
I'd have to say just from the information that I see that kind of personally goes through me, 5-10% at the outside, but probably more like 5%.
Okay.
Yeah, it's there's a lot of it is, hey, people saying, I get a lot of, hey, I've done my own research, and by done their own research, they've spent a lot of time Googling things.
Yeah.
And they really haven't come up with anything that's a new theory. A lot of times they've come up with stuff that we discarded a long time ago. We've had people pop up claiming to be junior officers on the U-boat that was never accounted for, that are pretty easily discredited. There's a lot of, it's like there's a lot of fake Elvis memorabilia out there. It's very similar with this investigation. There's a lot of people that have gotten a lot of free drinks over the years, telling some bogus stories about maybe meeting Hitler or being in proximity to some escaping Nazis. And I mean, we have to run down just about every lead, but a lot of them end up, you can discredit them fairly rapidly with nothing more than just some superficial investigation.
Now, who does these investigations in order to filter that information that's useful or not useful?
Most of that is done by Bob and by Nada and by some people that you don't see behind the scenes that we have making a lot of phone calls, actually traveling places and kind of talking to people in advance, saving us a little bit of the legwork. But everybody on the show, everybody is legitimately a part of the investigation. That's there are many directions that we took this year that were only due. I credit James Holland with a lot of what you're going to see in some of the upcoming episodes, because this is all the research that he did. In about 2 or 3 episodes, you're going to get a little bit of a backstory on a nefarious individual who has almost a Nazi version of a Jason Bourne type story. that's really interesting. That was all James, and of course, early in the seasons, especially, the whole framework of this investigation couldn't have been laid out if it wasn't for Gerard Williams and his incredible work that he's done in this. Really a lifetime of work by him to set the framework for this. So that's kept us going all along. And Lenny DePaul, who I got to work with for the first time on camera this year, just has contacts all over the world. And Lenny could pick up a phone and verify an individual's identity, or get some corroboration on somebody's story, or get somebody discredited very quickly. And of course, Tim and I, worldwide military contacts. I spent almost a decade of my life in South America, so there are always people that I can turn to there, and always assets that I can call on.
Yeah, we've had Gerard Williams on a few times from his book, The Gray Wolf, and James Hall is really, really good. But that's pretty time-consuming when you get a lot of these, off-the-cuff sort of weird things that people tell you, Hitler's on the moon and stuff like that.
On the moon or in Antarctica or something like that.
It's crazy. So have you already filmed the whole season now? Are you done filming?
Yeah, we're completely done. Season 3 is completely in the can. So,
can you tell us the ending?
In fact,
as if the trailer doesn't.
Fade to black. Roll credits. That's all I can tell you.
No, I just wanted to.
Yeah.
Do you find that a lot of people? Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, do you find a lot of people when you're out in these places and you're actually in a location and you're looking for Nazis, basically, or Hitler, or anything to do with that group? Do you find a lot of people to be kind of quiet, or even confrontational, or to the point where they don't want to talk?
Absolutely, and it's a weird mixture, because sometimes people will be put in contact with us, or we'll be put in contact with them. There'll be, some initial reaching out, some initial back and forth to kind of get an idea of what their story is going to be. If it's worth us taking the time to go out there and physically sit down with them face to face. There has to be some vetting up front. And we try to do as much corroboration and verification as we can with, through the channels, and make sure that this is not a person who's known for, telling lies in the area or whatever it might be. But oftentimes when we actually show up and start to talk to them, and we might have another person that has said, this person has told me this exact story about seeing, whoever it might be, Eichmann, Mengele, Bormann, Hitler himself. They've told me this story 20 times. It's well known that they tell this story. Or that, their father was so-and-so, with a name change, or somebody who worked for them. But once they see the camera and we start to ask the questions, sometimes you see them pull in a little bit. It's like, now my face is going to be all over the world saying that me or my family is associated with this horrible thing. And they'll all of a sudden not want to say some things that they've probably said to somebody in the past. And that's a little bit of a challenge to draw that out. Other times, people will claim to have a story, and in the middle of speaking to them, you'll realize that maybe there's one nugget of truth in that story, but 75% of it is they're either looking through the lens of time and seeing it a little bit differently, or trying to make the story a little bit better than it was, whatever it might be. Yeah, a little embellishment. And they're have been several interviews that we conducted that have not made it on camera. There was one in the second season where I got up and just walked out of a guy's house, and I said, "This, number one, he's lying to me. Number two, I think he's a Nazi, and I'm not. We're done." I'm like, because this was after 2 hours of back and forth, and me trying to get a certain bit of information, and literally every field interrogation technique I know not working. From being very nice to him and complimenting him to just out and out being confrontational. I said, we're just not going to, this guy's here because he wants to sell a book and really doesn't have any information that we don't already have. We're wasting our time. So it's challenging, and there's days that we get back to where we're staying, and I say, wow, we talked to 3 people today that gave us nothing more than we didn't already have, nothing that's ever going to get seen on TV, and we just, we flew all this way, or maybe took a boat or whatever it might be to get here, and we basically wasted our time. But that's the nature of the investigation. Not every lead is going to be 100%. This isn't. We're not walking in and scripting this, so they're not going to tell us exactly what we want to hear for the purpose of the cameras. So it's dicey. It really is.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, they're flying you all over too, so that's okay. You're not paying for it. So.
Yeah. No, it's not too bad.
No, and but what I was sort of getting at was, is there a fear still of Nazism? Like, are some of the people, are some of them actually scared that if they speak out against, any sort of Nazis, that something could happen to them now? Like, is there still that going on? Like, you talk about the Fourth Reich and kind of the idea of that's where it was going. So is there a Fourth Reich out there right now and Nazis that would do something to people if they were trying to speak out about it?
The impression that I've gotten from everyone that I've talked to is, number one, yes, the fear is 100% still there. What is out there right now, I don't know if I would call it the Fourth Reich. The Fourth Reich is a theme that came up a little bit last season and comes up again this season. If I and this is Mike's opinion. This is nothing that's you'll ever see on the show. But if I had to put a name on whatever might be out there right now, and I do think it's out there, I would actually call it more of a Fifth Reich. And I think it's unlike anything that we have kind of envisioned Nazism to be in the past. I think the people that are out there now that are espousing those same beliefs, that are willing to commit those same atrocities, I think they have learned to call themselves by different names, and I think they have learned to divorce themselves from the symbolism of the past. I don't think, we see on the news, there's obviously still a collection today of some very deranged, just completely disgusting individuals who will give a Nazi salute and will carry a Nazi flag. And I consider those people to be the lowest form of life out there breathing oxygen right now. But I think on par with them, there's another group who hardcore espouses those beliefs, but has learned to go completely underground and has learned to get to their objectives much more by subterfuge. And they're not going to fly a swastika in your face. They're not going to give a Nazi salute where you can see it. They're going to call themselves by different names. They're going to codify the terms that they use, and they're going to use an entirely different manner to get there. This is not. I think that the movement that's out there now that we would have to worry about more, and again, this is just Mike's opinion, isn't a movement that would blitzkrieg. They're a movement that would creep in and assume positions of power and positions of influence with the same ultimate objective of the Third Reich, but in a much more clandestine manner, and that's my opinion.
Mike, listen, and speaking for me as well, I know a lot of other people would probably have the same question about how many are left that you would consider Hitler's upper echelon. How many of them are actually left that could still be still alive?
Yeah, I think just obviously because of time, and of course the biggest joke that we get hit with all the time is, why are you looking for Hitler? There's no way he made it to 128 years old. Well, that's obviously. I don't think there's anybody. There just because of time, there are no inner circle people left. But that we have seen all the earmarks in every single season that the mantle was being passed, and you guys saw a lot of that at the end of last season when we went to Colonia Dignidad. That although they weren't flying a Nazi flag in that compound, and although they were calling it something different, a lot of these same the cycle of atrocities was continuing. They have passed the mantle off. The people that are out there now and still active are these people that got the torch handed directly from Eichmann, Mengele, Bormann, Hitler directly, or are they one or two generations removed from them? I don't know. I think the latter is probably a little bit more likely. I think this is a point that we talked about actually on the team quite a bit this year. Is at this point, it really doesn't matter that they're all dead. We are 100% sure that their ideology survived. We're 100% sure that the evil has survived and that the oppression continues. And at this point, the only way to ferret that out is to prove where these people fled to and where they went to ground and the connections that they made. Because now, as the next generation of these just absolute scum starts to emerge into a more public scene, we can then, again, with asset mapping, we can trace these people back to those same locations, to those same small groups, wherever it is that they're ultimately coming out of, and we can make that connection, and we'll be able to figure out that there are people walking amongst us today, maybe even in public, that have connections to some of these individuals that went to ground in quiet back rooms. They shared their ideology. They planned for decades in the future, and then they ultimately died a coward's death and were buried in a nameless grave somewhere, but their ideology continues.
Okay, well, cool.
What was the biggest surprise that you learned in this season? Without giving away too much. Biggest surprise that I learned in this season. Two big ones. I can tell you the finale of this season, for me on the ground as an investigator, standing in the exact in the location that I was equally emotionally impactful, and expect the level of emotional gut punch that you felt in the finale of season 2. You can expect all that and possibly more in the finale of season 3. Things that I had just shocked me, just all the way to my bones, literally. The other thing that surprised me the most, and this was not on an emotional level, this was just a great kind of aha moment as an investigator, is you got a little glimpse of in the trailer for what's going to happen on the next episode. So in the next episode, I put on a dry suit and a scuba tank, and I go in the water to
see exactly what secrets Lake Altasea is holding, and I can tell you it's holding a lot of secrets. And you got a little glimpse of that in the trailer,
Yes.
but it's definitely there. And physically seeing that proof and uncovering that proof with your own hands and seeing it with your own eyes and holding it in your hand, that's a feeling that I don't think could be compared with.
Yeah, Mike, let me go back to Stephen's question. How many are out there? We're probably looking at about 2 generations down this time in our time now. What are they waiting for? What is their end game? I mean, do they have like annual meetings? And, what are they waiting for?
I don't think they are waiting. I think they're doing what they're doing. I think they just have a much different plan. If you look at and James, James being a historian, he can kind of expound on this much better than I can. But the Nazis in the Third Reich, late 30s, going into the 40s, it was all about expand or die for them. I mean, they really had to. They were a small country. They didn't have enough of their own resources. It's kind of funny because this term, just the other day I heard somebody use the term government jobs programs, and whenever I hear that term, I actually think of the government jobs programs of Nazi Germany, because that's how he, in a country that had no employment, he kind of created false employment with all this road work, building an Autobahn they really couldn't afford, creating all these government jobs, but that was not sustainable. So in order to sustain all the people that Hitler put in uniform, because really he was giving them jobs by putting them in these German military uniforms, he had to then do something with that. He had to conquer lands. He had to take resources from other places. So there was a time factor there. There was a reason that the Nazis, they had to do it, and they had to do it quick. I don't think the movements that we're talking about today have the impetus to do that, because they're not talking about a post-World War I Germany that they're having to sustain the population and move quickly to gather natural resources. I think this is a movement that is willing to bide its time and work in the shadows and use all the resources of the 21st century, the internet and everything that it involves to gather resources, to do recruitment. And again, I think they do the recruitment under a totally different face. I don't think this is a website people go to with a swastika on the landing page and click for more information. I think they're putting out feelers on an ideological level and bringing people into this ideological umbrella and saying, this is our ultimate goal. Get on board and be a part of this. And I don't think they're waiting for anything. I think they're doing it right now. I think they're gathering assets. I think they are putting people in positions of key influence. I think they are also looking to recruit people in positions of key influence and get money from people. And I'm 100% sure that there are people out there. There were people in Germany in the 1930s that were not bad people that maybe thought Hitler had the right idea. This was, before the evil was completely uncovered. And I think now it's easier for these people who are just, have those same terrible evil ideals to kind of keep that under wraps and maybe solicit funds or solicit support from people in positions of power and influence by using the right buzzwords, by saying, this is what we want. These are what our goals are. They put they package it in a much different. The poison in the bottle has been packaged in a very appealing package to this point for people that they don't realize what they're consuming. And because I do think they've learned from the mistakes of the past. And, James and I have, talked about length of it, to talk about all the Third Reich was fraught with in retrospect, looking through the lens of history, it's like huge mistake, huge tactical mistake, huge strategic mistake, throwing all of your resources into this instead of this. I think the people out there now that espouse this ideology have learned from those mistakes.
Well, now let me go way out into left field here and get a little conspiratorial.
Sure.
Because we hear the same language thrown around the media today a lot. Nationalism, or, anti-fascism, or this is fascist, or so-and-so's fascist, or Trump's a Nazi. Well, no, Hillary's a Nazi. And you've got these groups that are acting very similar on both sides to, 1930s Germany. The beer hall pushed. And do you think that maybe there really is a connection? If you say that this group is probably sitting back in the shadows and, utilizing modern resources such as the internet or, social networking, do you think it's possible that it really is happening?
I 100% think it's possible. I mean, if you look at the frustrated in the 1930s, in post-World War I Germany, the frustrated Germans who, couldn't get a job.
The Treaty of Versailles was killing them.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. I mean, they were beaten, they were broken, they were angry. They were looking. One of the people that I talked to in the course of my investigation was somebody. He's not a Holocaust survivor himself, but has family members that were, and he's worked closely with the Mossad and with the Wiesenthal organization. And he told me, he said, one thing that what we learned from history is the swastika. The swastika is bad, and the Nazi salute is bad, and anybody who gets up and praises Adolf Hitler, they're bad. But what we haven't learned is that the tactics are bad. That anyone or with any ideology who tells you that person is to blame, that person is the problem, whether they're an ethnicity or a religion or an ideology, and says that person is to blame, and therefore they are your enemy, and therefore you are completely justified in whatever you do against them, that's wrong by any stretch of the imagination. And basically that was in the conversation I had with him. He said, that any time someone comes up and they prop themselves up as a leader, and their first order of business is to is to ally themselves with one group and then convince that group that another group is their enemy, that's a problem, and that's how it starts. That's how things like this start. And if you look at Germany in the 1930s, most of the people that were on the streets marching and getting angry, I bet most of them hadn't even read Mein Kampf. They didn't 100% understand it. They knew they were angry, and they wanted to get out there. They wanted to get out there and do something about it. And I think in the age of the internet, a person that has this twisted ideology, it's even more simple for them to spin up groups like this and to work them into a frenzy. And like you said, on both sides, work these people into a frenzy, convince other people that they're enemy, and say, you got to go and clash against them. And I think you see these clashes happening in cities all across the country, between these Antifa groups and between these, what they're calling the alt-right groups. And I think somewhere there's somebody watching this on TV, sipping a nice cold drink and just giggling to themselves because this is all part of their plan, and I don't know if they're allying themselves with one of these groups or maybe even both these groups. There's a lot to be gained by pitting groups against each other and just kind of watching and seeing how it plays out. There are power brokers out there who, and I'm speaking on a highly conspiratorial level here. This might sound a little bit wacky to some people in your audience, but there's people out there in positions of power that are willing to do things like this. Is this just a theory? Is this really going on? I don't know. I mean, I think history tells us that it's possible, and whether it is or not, I don't know. But I know there's people out there that espouse evil, and I don't think they're sitting idly by. Are they a part of everything we're seeing, all this chaos we're seeing on television? I don't know. I can't say for sure, but I certainly think that it would be a way for them to further their goals.
Does Hitler have any living relatives left?
According to the research that Gerard has done, yes. Well, are you talking about direct descendants or blood relatives just at all?
Yeah, just at all. Like, they talk about it.
Oh yeah. Oh yes.
Yeah.
Yes, he does have blood relatives. If you watch the documentary Meet the Hitlers, there's actually one individual who claims to be, and there's some question about whether he is or not. But the reason that question arose as to whether he was or not was they contacted somebody who legitimately they knew was a blood relative of Hitler, who said, "No, I don't think that guy's related to us." I believe, and I could be wrong. I'm sure you have audience members who've seen it, and I might be not remembering it correctly. But unless I'm thinking of something just totally out of left field, I'm fairly certain that yes, he has some living blood relatives, and there are theories out there, as I said, that Hitler and Eva Braun had one or two daughters, and that his line lives on.
Yeah. Yeah, I've heard that rumor. I just wasn't sure if you guys had any contact with anybody throughout the investigation.
No, that's that's been a point that we certainly have encountered individuals that related to other folks, both last season and this season. We uncover some family members of some very well-known and high-ranking individuals, but as far as access to anyone directly related to Adolf Hitler himself, those who are living and known to be living have, for obvious reasons, chosen to distance themselves from that, and they have wanted privacy from that and have chose to seclude themselves. I think many of them have actually changed their surname. I've never had a conversation with Gerard as far as what he's done to run down the possibility of talking to Hitler's actual descendants, if he has any. So, but for obvious reasons, those are people that would want to keep that secret. If they are out there, maybe in a couple of generations that will change. We've certainly seen that in the past, that generations down the line come forward and they say, "No, this is a horrible family secret we've been hiding," and I think the only way to cleanse our familial soul is basically to come forward with this information. So, maybe someday we'll see that.
Now, Mike, let me get just a little bit wordy here, because that's what I do. In order to spare us Jews, God spread us to the four winds of the earth. He created a diaspora. And throughout the Hunting Hitler investigation, it seems to have focused primarily in South America for obvious reasons. Do you think that your investigation is eventually going to send you to other countries? I mean, would they have gone to other countries as well as South America?
I do. I think at the time, if you look at the mid-20th century and on, South America was an ideal location for them because of the bridges that they had built leading up and during the Second World War. That was an area of the world that didn't have a lot of focus on it, that had a lot of remote areas. This was before, this was pre-internet, pre-iPhone, pre-YouTube, so this was an ideal place for them. But I think, and we touched on it very briefly in second season, and you'll see something of it here in the third season, that as friendly governments, we're talking about a very tumultuous time in the continent of South America when governments were falling at a fairly prolific rate, and you do see a migration of these escaped Nazis as these governments are changing hands from a friendly government to a not-so-friendly government. So we know that there was some movement there. I have to think that over a certain amount of time, it would have made sense for them to move out of there and to other locations, including the U.S., because, obviously, post-World War II, as the eyes were on us, as we were emerging as a superpower, especially when you're talking about these second-generation individuals who wouldn't be recognizable and, had a birth certificate from wherever it might be, they could very easily come to the U.S., using what was left of this Nazi plunder to set themselves up and set up a foothold and possibly continue with the plans for this Fourth Reich, Fifth Reich, whatever it might be. So I do think there was some of that. Obviously the key to our investigation is these individuals, Adolf Hitler himself and his close confidants. So we're just concentrating on that. We have gotten some leads that would possibly take us in other directions. We couldn't. Some of them came a little bit late this year, so we couldn't necessarily run them down. We know about them. Will there be a fourth season? I don't know. I can tell you that we're still getting information. So if there is a fourth season, I think you would certainly see us flexing outside of South America, going to some other locations if that were to happen. If not, I mean, we've got the information, and this could always get passed off to someone else. This could make a standalone documentary someday, or this could be something that somebody runs down on their own and ends up on the front page of every magazine in the world someday. Who knows?
Just one more reason that we need to build that wall, right?
I
think Canada.
They'd probably already be on this side of the wall. It's I'm a Texan, so I'm in favor of the wall, and I actually know quite a few Border Patrol agents, and I actually work with quite a few of them because the company that Tim and I have, Sheepdog, and literally it kind of funny. We're kind of doing an odd segue here, but watching the meeting in the White House last week, and Henry Cuellar, who's from South Texas, who has quite a reputation in Texas, I can tell you, trying to tell Trump that none of the Border Patrol chiefs or agents believe the wall will work. And every Border Patrol agent I know saying that he's completely full of it. That's not the case. We do need some physical barriers. We need 21st century barriers. You can't build a wall across the entire border. Geography won't allow it. And just a wall is not what you need, because anybody can climb over a wall. So we need a combination of physical barriers and electronic surveillance and agents on the ground patrolling it, and agents allowed to do their job. We need a complete revamp of that system. This is totally outside the scope of this show, but
I mean, we can't get that done here. Nope.
No, I don't think so. Hopefully they'll get it done in D.C. this year. I've got a little bit of hope for that. So we need. We know that what we have now is just not working. So we need something.
Yeah. Well, and we have to keep an eye out on those Canadians too, right? especially with the Nazis.
Yeah, trying to come down here and spread hockey everywhere.
Yeah, how rude. They're just too nice. We're going to have to do something about that.
Yeah.
The Leafs.
Yeah, change that politeness. Well, I'll tell you, it's been interesting. It's certainly a great series that you guys are a part of, and I'm glad you're back for another season. And hopefully a fourth one comes along. We love watching it. And again, we thank you for being on the show. And we've had our guest today has been Dr. Michael Simpson. Thank you.
Thank you very much, guys. Thank you for having me on. I hope everybody enjoys the show.
To find out more about our show, guests, or to listen to past shows from our archive, please go to www.houseofmysteryradio.com.
Show's over for now.
Was it as good for you as it was for me?
Well, good night.
This has been a production of Something Weird Media.
I'll be back.